G'day everyone.
I thought I would show some of my favourite albums of 2020. These aren't all the albums that will make my list. I will actually put the list of my top 100 albums in the description. I listen to a very large amount of albums each year. That's why it is a top 100, just to get the list down from all the albums that I listen to. I'm not showing these in any order. These are just some random ones that are on the list. And I thought I'd just show you and tell you a little bit about them. So, first of all, we have Aronious. The band is Aronious. The album is Perspicacity. A little bit tricky to say. They're a progressive death metal, technical death metal band from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Absolutely brilliant album. Kind of trancy, kind of spacey in some ways, sort of takes you off to another place. Pure escapism. Some really beautiful guitar solos, and for a tech death album, it's still brutal, but there's a lot of beauty in it, and yeah, it makes for a really amazing listen. Just really takes me away to another place. Next, have the band Oranssi Patsutsu, which is a Finnish avant-garde metal band. They're sort of black metal in roots, I guess. Avant-garde metal. They really push the boundaries on all of their music. It's never the same. It's always a little bit experimental, but they add in some things that you know. So there's quite a bit of psychedelic rock, quite a bit of black metal and avant-garde metal. But this band completely has my trust that any time I buy a new release by them, it's going to be mind-blowing, it's going to challenge me, but it's going to put a smile on my face as well. So absolutely brilliant band. Mistarin Kinsey is the name of the album. I'm sure I'm probably saying that wrong, but anyway. Next up, we have the band Kingwitch and their album Body of Light. Heavy metal album, little bit of traditional doom as well. Laura Donnelly's voice on this is just magnificent, and then you have her voice coupled with Jamie Gilchrist's lead guitar, big solos, incredibly big hook riffs. The opening title track, Body of Light, is just one of my favourite songs of 2020, an absolutely brilliant song. So yeah, check it out if you haven't heard it. Very, very good album. Now the next one, this one actually finished second on my list of my top 100 albums of 2020. And as I said, I'll put my full list in the description so you can check out all of those albums. Maybe there's some you don't know, maybe you know them all. But this is my second favourite album of 2020. Oh, I'll hold it the right way. It's Imperial Triumphant and their album Alphaville. Now, Vile Luxury was their last album, which I absolutely adored. I've absolutely enjoyed all four albums, including this one. And what they do is they combine a black metal and a technical death metal with jazz and avant-garde jazz and a little bit of avant-garde metal, progressive metal, I guess, but it's the combination of black metal and jazz that really gets me on this. So you've got all the brass instruments that you'd expect on jazz, you've got piano, and you may think to yourself that jazz and black metal, how can that coexist? But when you think about it, the two are very good together. They're both a little bit unorthodox, they both use sort of interesting time signatures, they're free form, they can be beautiful but they can be chaotic at the same time, so they do really work well together. And on this album, Imperial Triumphant really pushed that sound further than what they did on Vile Luxury of combining the jazz and the black metal. They're from New York. Just a brilliant album, and as I say, that was my second favourite album of 2020. Fantastic, fantastic album. Next up, we have a band from Rome, Italy, called Divangelic, and their album is called Setu. Brutal death metal, absolutely brutal. However, they certainly do put hooks in there. There is lots of sections where it provides for repeat listens. You want to go back and hear it. It's not just brutal for brutal's sake. There is a lot of melody in there and some really catchy sections, but an absolutely killer album. Killer album that I've played a lot this year. Divangelic Setu. Next up, we have from Denmark, another death metal band called Waywood Dawn. This is their second album. Death metal again, a bit of a groove metal sound at times, mainly death metal, but there's certainly a lot of groove in this, a lot of hooks, a lot of big hook riffs as well. A very catchy death metal album. Didn't really know much about this band before I heard this album, and I bought this album on Bandcamp basically halfway through the first listen. I loved it that much. So yeah, Waywood Dawn, and the album is called Haven of Lies. Very good album indeed. Next up, this is a band from my hometown in Perth, Western Australia, and their name is Warday Monik, and this album is called Acts of Repentance. Absolutely brilliant black metal album. This is their fourth album. I think they've been getting better on each and every album. This is their previous album. This was their third album. Very hard to pronounce. Obsequium, I think that's how you pronounce it. I should have asked Dan how to pronounce that first, but anyway, that's their third album. This is their fourth album that came out this year. An absolutely fantastic black metal album. Pretty straight up black metal, but there is quite a bit of melody in there, so I guess it will be coming into the melodic black metal sort of realm. But just an extremely well written album and sounds absolutely fantastic. Next up, a band that is one of my favourite bands of all time. I've seen them live a couple of times. I've met Piotr, and the band is Vader. This is their 16th album, Solitude in Madness, and it's just Vader, and it's Vader at their absolute best. This is what they do. Death metal, catchy, great well-written songs, excellent musicianship, well recorded, everything's just exactly what you want in Vader. And this was brilliant, and I was going to get this anyway. I get Vader albums pretty much without even listening to them. I either pre-order them or I get them as soon as they're released. But this one is an absolute ripper. Litany would probably still be my favourite Vader album overall, but this is an absolute blast of an album. I love it to bits. Next up, a band that I had kind of been following a little bit, and I knew some of the earlier stuff, but this album, I think this album is absolutely magnificent. A band from Japan, heavy metal, a little bit of speed metal, a little bit of thrash, maybe power metal, but not really, and that's the band Lovebites, and this is their album Electric Pentagram. The thing I loved about this is the two lead guitar players, Midori and Miyako. Their lead guitars are brilliant, absolutely brilliant rhythms, fast, good. At times they move into that heavy sort of fast thrash realm, and other times they come back to the speed metal, heavy metal. Just a brilliant band. I've always wanted to see them live, so hopefully one day I'll be able to see them live. And they've got a song on here called Raise Some Hell, which was one of my favourite songs of 2020. This is their third album. They're from Tokyo, Japan. Lovebites, Electric Pentagram. Next up, a band that I have seen many times. They are from Yogyakarta, Indonesia, and the band is called Death Vomit. Absolutely brilliant band. One of the real godfathers of Indonesian death metal, and the Indonesian death metal scene is huge. Some of the best death metal bands I've ever seen are from Indonesia and are still based there. And this album, this is the third album by Death Vomit, and this album, they've had some great stuff before. The first two albums were really great. This one's just got that a bit more polish to it, as you'd expect a band coming into their third album. They've been around for quite a long time, but this is just their third full-length album. And yeah, a lot of polish, just outstanding death metal. And a brilliant band if you ever get the chance to see them live. They have come out of Indonesia a couple of times and done a few shows, and they are just magnificent. Generally, they're only a three-piece, and it's quite hard to believe that much sound and the way they play and everything is coming out of a three-piece. An absolutely brilliant band, and this is an excellent album. Next, I've got a couple of that I got on record. I tend to have both records and CDs. I've probably got a lot more CDs than records, but I do have quite a few records. It just depends on how things are released, how I see them, how I want them. So I do get some records, but the next one coming up is a band from Rochester, New York, and their name is Undeath. That's the artwork there. You can see that poor fellow, not doing so well, but kind of amazing artwork there. Undeath is a old school death metal sound. They are a newish band, very new indeed. This is their debut album, and I believe they only started in 2019, and this is their debut after they've started. But even though it's a new death metal band, they have the old school death metal sound, but it doesn't sound like they're trying to be retro or copy anyone. It still sounds quite new and fresh. Let me show you the vinyl. The vinyl's pretty cool, actually. Vinyl's pretty cool. See, it's got not bad at all. A brilliant album, an absolutely brilliant album that I've played so very, very much. The next one, this also is a debut album. There was, as just so many amazing debut albums this year. Absolutely brilliant, just incredible that bands can form and literally within 1 or 2 years are putting together just masterpieces of work. This is a band from London, and the band is called Cult Burial. And yeah, this is their debut album. Kind of a mix between, it's probably mostly a death metal sound, but the vocals do get black metal at times, and the slowness, sometimes they really slow it down, so it becomes a little bit of doom, sort of like the death and the doom sound. Just absolutely brilliant, brilliant, brilliant album all the way through. The best way I can describe this record is hooks with savagery. It really, really is. It's brutal, it's nasty, it's heavy, but there's lots of moments where you're quite surprised because you get some sort of heavy metal, like traditional heavy metal sounding hooks that are built into the savagery. And it's the sort of thing that brings you back to a record. Sure, they can be brutal and heavy and rip your face off, but you need those hooks to bring you back time and time again. So that's Cult Burial, and the name of the album is Cult Burial. So now I will show, I didn't put these in order in any way, but I will show now my number one favourite album of 2020 is a band that's in my top 4 bands of all time. They consistently put out albums that are between 9.5 out of 10 and 10 out of 10. It's become their average to have absolutely stunning albums. And my favourite album of 2020 is Utgard by Enslaved. This is just magnificent. I love this album so much. I've loved everything they've done. Axioma Ethica Odini and Run are my favourite Enslaved albums of all time. In my opinion, I don't think they've done or made an album that's below 9 out of 10. It just doesn't exist. Their average is making absolutely outstanding albums. It's become their average. This is a band that's kind of untouchable in some ways. They just seem to make albums and records that finished in the top 5 every single time they release an album. They seem to make whatever they feel like making at will. They have their sound, but they do change it regularly, just tweak it here and there, just little bits. And no matter what they do, it comes out absolutely stellar. And this is no exception. It's a brilliant album. Hang on, let me show you the crow on there. Enslaved, Utgard, an absolute masterpiece in my opinion, and my #1 album of 2020. So there's some of my favourite albums of 2020. As I say, that wasn't all of them. That was just, I just wanted to show you a couple of samples and things like that. A couple of shout outs to people. Just want to shout out to Aaron, the Metal Theologian. Really, really top guy. If you haven't seen his channel, watched his videos, I highly recommend it. Top guy, and thanks very much, Aaron, for all your help to me. Shout out to Ron Haggerty, Vinyl Sanctuary, another guy that I watch a lot. Really, really great channel. Shout out to the Vinyl Guru, very entertaining. She always has me smiling when I watch her videos. And a big shout out to Pete Pardo and the Sea of Tranquility and all the guys and girls at Sea of Tranquility. Great channel. I always love watching the Hudson Valley Squares. And yeah, thanks very much to everyone who's helped me, and we'll catch you soon. Hope you love the video, and we'll catch you soon.